Everything ends. And it's always sad. But everything begins again too. And that's always happy.
Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 heartbreaking goodbyes in Doctor Who.
Run. Run, you clever boy. And remember me.
Before we begin, if you enjoy this video, please subscribe for more great content. For this list, we've gathered an emotionally charged ensemble of famous farewells from the long-running BBC sci-fi series. Number 10, Susan Foreman, The Dalek Invasion of Earth. We start with one of the first major departures from the show, as William Hartnell's Doctor makes the difficult decision to leave his granddaughter behind.
Grandfather, I belong with you!
Not any longer, Susan. You're still my grandchild, and always will be.
Susan was an ever-present in the TARDIS from the very first episode of Doctor Who, until the 1964 serial The Dalek Invasion of Earth, where she meets and falls in love with a resistance fighter from the future, David Campbell.
Goodbye, Susan. Goodbye, my dear.
Susan seems set to leave Campbell as the story ends, but the Doctor intervenes for her greater good.
You knew you could never leave him.
Number 9, Handel's The Time of the Doctor. Although Handel's on-screen time is severely limited, he's actually one of the Doctor's longest-serving companions, given his continuous but unseen role on Trenzalore.
Processing official designation. Processing.
Okay, in your own time, dear, don't rush.
So, when the reconfigured Cyberman head finally shuts down for good, Eleven's understandably devastated, and the feeling's definitely mutual.
Come back. Handles.
Of course, the drama also unfolds as part of the build-up to Matt Smith's imminent regeneration, so this entire episode is heaped with heartbreak.
Thank you, Handles. And well done. Well done, mate.
Number 8, Jenny, The Doctor's Daughter. To another single episode character, and another with a closer than most link to the Doctor.
Who is she?
Well, she's my daughter.
Jenny takes the title role in The Doctor's Daughter, created as the Time Lord's DNA is passed through a progenation machine on Messaline. Ten takes time to warm to her, but eventually accepts her, and for the briefest of moments the future seems very bright indeed. But then disaster strikes and the Doctor's happiness quickly disintegrates.
No!
And while we know that this isn't the end of Jenny, he thinks it is.
That's the truth of it. She was too much like me.
Number 7, Sarah Jane Smith, The Hand of Fear. Often remembered as one of the most popular and recognisable companions from the show's classic era, Sarah Jane travelled with the Doctor's third and fourth incarnations.
You're a good girl, Sarah.
So, when she eventually leaves, it really feels as though the Doctor is losing a friend.
I've had the call from Gallifrey. So I can't take you with me. You've got to go.
With Tom Baker bound for Gallifrey, Sarah's send-off is more understated than most, but this scene is all the more powerful for the things that aren't said.
Don't forget me.
Sarah, don't you forget me.
And the pair's parting words provide a perfectly poignant reflection on their time together.
You know, travel does broaden the mind.
Yes. Till we meet again, Sarah.
Number 6, Tegan Jovanka, Resurrection of the Daleks. To a scene triggered by tragedy, as the 5th Doctor loses yet another companion under sorrowful circumstances.
Patrick. Doctor!
With Tegan still traumatised by Adric's explosive death in Earthshock, which almost made this list in its own right, here we see her voluntarily walk away from the TARDIS.
I'm not coming with you.
For Tegan, the initial thrill of time travel has well and truly worn off, and she's sick of the suffering and devastation that seems to follow the Doctor through space.
If you stop enjoying it, give it up.
Tegan.
It stopped being fun, Doctor.
So she leaves, leaving him feeling lonelier than ever.
Brave heart, Tegan. Doctor, I will miss you.
Number 5, River Song, The Name of the Doctor. Where to start with River? Thanks to her crisscrossing timeline, she's been at the center of her fair share of gut-wrenching goodbyes.
Shh now. 3 spoilers. 2.
But we'll focus on her reappearance to 11, which comes sometime after she sacrifices herself to stop 10 sacrificing himself in Forest of the Dead. It seems a final meeting between the two, in River's chronology at least, and this scene serves as definitive proof of the incomparable link between both characters.
Since nobody else in this room can see you, God knows how that looked.
She fades, but she's not forgotten.
Goodbye, sweetie.
Number 4, The 10th Doctor, The End of Time Part 2. There's rarely a dry eye whenever a regeneration comes around.
And you know what? So was I.
Christopher Eccleston's was fantastically moving, while Matt Smith mustered some real words of wisdom in his final scenes.
I will always remember when the Doctor was me.
But nothing beats David Tennant's closing moments in the TARDIS. Having just taken a sentimental journey to revisit everyone he's ever known, he enters the blue box for one last hurrah. And as the epic soundtrack surges, his last ever lines are immeasurably sad.
I don't want to go.
Number 3, Amy and Rory, The Angels Take Manhattan. As Matt Smith's 11th Doctor cut a cheeky kind of character most of the time, whenever he did suffer, it seemed to hurt twice as much.
I could have lost you both. No. Don't ever do that again.
But nothing impacted 11 quite as horribly as the sudden departure of Amy Pond. He, Amy, Rory, and River appear to have defeated the Angels once again, only for one statue to ruin everything.
Doctor!
And as Amy agonizes over the inevitable prospect of leaving, it becomes clear that the Doctor is powerless to change her mind.
Goodbye.
No!
And he's devastated when she goes. Number 2, Donna Noble, Journey's End. David Tennant had a habit of creating all kinds of heartbreak whenever he said goodbye to a companion, and Martha's heart-on-sleeve ending also deserves a mention.
I'll see you again, mister.
But Donna's departure was just plain soul-crushing. Moments beforehand, she was harnessing Time Lord knowledge and saving the entire universe. But then her memory gets wiped, and she can't even recall who the Doctor is.
No, please, no.
They travelled galaxies together to get to this point, but when 10 goes to leave, Donna's indifference is all too much to bear.
Donna, I was just going.
Yeah, see ya.
Number 1, Rose Tyler, Doomsday. We finish with the Daleks and the Cybermen headed for the Void, and the stage seems set for 10 and Rose to save the world and continue their travels. But this adventure ends in untold anguish, as Rose winds up in a parallel universe, separated forever from the Doctor she loves. And when 10 transmits his image to Bad Wolf Bay, for one final face-to-face, the untimely loss of power leaves us feeling even worse.
I love you.
It's quite right too.
A tear-in-eye triumph of a scene, it's a definitive moment in Doctor Who history.
It's my last chance to say it. Rose Tyler.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from Watch Mojo UK and subscribe for more great content.